Greetings and salutations. It is I, Mr. Nothing, the museum curator of the weird and the strange, and the host who might be a ghost. Welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I have found while plummeting to my death at a construction site. Now you might be saying, well, golly, Mr. Nothing, that sure sounds morbid, and it'll make more sense. You'll find that it's very on theme with what I have to talk about today. It is Short Story Tuesday, one of my favorite days of the week, where I get to talk about the short form literature that haunts my dreams and causes me to really think about literature and the world as a whole. Today I want to highlight another collection that I found at my local library. Don't forget to patronize your local library. It is by Haitian author Edwidge Danticat. It's a French last name. Haitian author Edwidge Danticat, and she wrote Everything Inside. Interesting cover, very simple, but very pretty. So again, I got it from a local library, picked it out at random. Didn't know really anything about Edwidge Danticat, apart from she wrote a short story collection. Also, I think in my my TBR video that I did earlier this week, I might have said that Edwidge was a guy, maybe because I was going off the name alone. So, apologies out there for misgendering someone. Edwidge is a lady writer, not a man writer. Properly pronouncing people is important. So for those that don't know, Edwidge Danticat is a Haitian author, Haitian American. She's been writing books since the 1990s, which is a pretty long time. She's been writing everything from short stories to novels to sort of nonfiction about Haiti. She's won a couple of awards in her time. But other than that, I don't know much else about her. I do know quite a bit about Haiti, and I guess in order to understand the context in which she is writing, because many of these shorts, I'd say all of them, are about Haiti in some form or another. Particularly the one I'll be talking about today. Understanding Haiti, it's a country in the Caribbean on Hispaniola, which is an island that is also shared with the Dominican Republic. Haiti has been through a lot of tragedy with earthquakes and hurricanes and whatnot, and there's a lot of discrimination by the Dominicans against Haiti, especially with Haitians who happen to live in the Dominican Republic. And from what I've gathered, the Dominican Republic is often seen as the more wealthy to-do country, while Haiti is seen as the poorer country. And so you can understand why Haitian immigrants would be in a hurry to leave for the promise of a better tomorrow in the United States. At least the promise of a better tomorrow. Whether or not they get that better tomorrow remains to be seen. Another important thing is that the Haitians speak French instead of Spanish. One of the few countries in the Caribbean to speak a language other than Spanish. And I think that's just interesting because you have an island shared by Dominican Republic and Haiti. One side speaks French, one side speaks Spanish. So you get those differences too. I believe that understanding about Haiti will help you understand more about Edwidge. It won't help you understand everything, but context is important here. If she's writing about Haiti, you got to do your research. You gotta understand a little bit about about that culture and where the immigrants are in America today. I do think it's interesting that I haven't read any Haitian literature yet. I have read Dominican literature. The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde is a wonderful book, even if its author is a bit troubling and has been Me Too'd at this point. Yeah, it's a quality book. I haven't read more Dominican literature, but I figure it's always time to check out more Haitian literature and understand that about her. And the story I want to talk about today is Without Inspection. It's actually the last short story in this collection. And true to the saying, I believe that Edwidge saves the best for last with this story. So I want to provide a little summary, a little analysis, and we will move on from there. So Without Inspection starts with the character of Arnold falling from a construction site. See, I told you it was on theme. But Arnold is a Haitian immigrant, an undocumented immigrant in the country, and he was working at a construction site. His harness failed, and he was on a scaffolding, and he fell off, and he is currently in the process of falling towards his presumed death or big injury or whatever. And that's when his life begins flashing before his eyes, and he begins recalling key events and personal experiences in his life. He recalls Darlene and Paris. Darlene is his girlfriend. They're pretty close to getting married, and Paris is Darlene's son in another marriage. And how Darlene and Paris and Arnold came to meet was that Arnold left Haiti on a raft and headed towards presumably the Florida coast. However, the boat capsized, killing some of the people who were on the raft with him. And at the shore, he ran into Darlene, who has a habit of of waiting at the shoreline to rescue various immigrants who come to the country and providing them with relief through shelter or food or stuff like that. And so Darlene does this because maybe it's a way of her atoning for the fact that her husband died. Paris's father died when they were traveling to the country, immigrating. Unfortunately, her husband died, so she's been caring for immigrants ever since. And luckily, because her husband died, the immigration officials who found her gave her sort of humanitarian parole, as it's described in the book, where they just decided to make her a citizen of sorts, or allow her to stay in the country. He's thinking about Darlene and how they met at that time. And he's also thinking about his relationship with Paris, where he's not Paris's father. But he does care for Paris. The school that Paris goes to wants to put him in special classes. But Arnold realizes, as does Darlene, that Paris, the reason he is behaving the way he's behaving is because he lost his father and because he moved from Haiti to America, which is probably jarring for him. He's very caring of Paris, even though he is not Paris's father. So as he's thinking this, everything comes rushing back towards him, and he falls towards the ground. He specifically falls on a cement mixer. And as he's dying, unfortunately, he has an out-of-body experience where he's like, I just want to see Paris and Darlene for the last time. And whether this is actually happening or this is the product of his brain just firing on all cylinders as he's dying, he sees Darlene, Darlene having a conversation at her work where she's a cook or something like that, and he sees Paris at school, just doing his best, and so he feels satisfied that he does get to see his girlfriend and his sort of son before they before he dies. And that's exactly what he does, despite the other people at the construction site like trying to save him. He ends up dying, and then the story ends with the news sort of relaying the story of his death. He had used a fake name, so like the news reports that fake name, and like the construction site is like, oh, like we regret what happened with him, and we will do our best to ensure safety in the future, but I doubt they're going to ensure safety for their immigrant workers, and that's another tangent altogether, but that's where the story ends. It's very sad, and like I felt like a huge like sense of melancholy. I described that with dinosaurs and other planets, and that video I did for that. But yeah, I especially felt it here too, because like the memories he's reliving are very happy and hopeful, but it ends on such a sour, sad note, and it's definitely interesting there. So in terms of analysis, as I just mentioned, the story is very sad and very hopeful. Sad in terms of what's happening. Arnold is falling to his death. He falls into a cement mixer and dies. Like, that's very sad. And he's leaving behind Darlene and Paris, who he's grown to love. At the same time, as he's recalling these events of like how he met Darlene, he can't help but think of the people who died on the boat as it sank when he was traveling to America, and like there's that bit of sadness and that bit of guilt, which I'll get to next. So it provides you a lot to think about with the immigrant experience and how it can sometimes be sad, but it also touches upon hope. Like there's a lot of hope here, with the relationship between Darlene, Paris, and Arnold, like turning out really hopeful. Out of a sadness in Darlene's own life, she managed to find love again, and that's very beautiful. And like there's also hope that like Paris may have a better life even after Arnold is dead, because one day he may get to go to Paris, the real country, and he may be among people who speak his same language, and there may be a sense of respect there. There is some hope there, even if it may not be grounded completely in reality. And as I mentioned before, there's some guilt here. Arnold feels guilt for not only the people who died on the boat ride, but also the people he left behind in Haiti. Something that as someone with a degree in psychology, I can safely say is survivor's guilt, where you've made it to a sort of better place, America, but in a country that's still like languishing in some ways, Haiti, and the people who died, like you're like, why do I get to live and they don't? And so Arnold is dealing with that, and Darlene to some extent is also dealing with that, and I feel like they bond over that sort of mutual grief in a lot of ways, and maybe that's not the best way to form a relationship, but it does work out for them. And like who's to say it's wrong? Like that's something that I grasped when I was reading, and I think Edwidge does a wonderful job of describing it, and it makes the story all the more better. Lastly, I want to talk about how love can help us heal, because I felt like that was like one of the central like themes of this story. Like there's this guilt and this sadness and the hope that exists, but love is also the central theme, because Arnold has a great amount of love for Darlene and for Paris, and that through that love, like Paris has been able to cope with the sadness of losing his father and leaving his home country, and Darlene has found new love after losing her husband who died at sea, and Arnold is becoming more acclimated, I want to say, to living in America. So he's more acclimated, and like I feel like that's through the support of Darlene, as well as the returned love that she feels for him. There's a specific passage that I want to read to you that I feel like gets at that love vibe that I'm getting here. So there are loves that outlive lovers. Some version of these words had been his prayer as he fell. Darlene would now have two of those. He would also have two, Darlene and Paris. He would keep trying to look for them. He would continue to hum along with Darlene's song and keep whispering in Paris's ear. He would also try to guide Darlene back to the beach, to look for others like him. So you can see in the story that love that love was a big factor in Arnold's life. But he hopes it'll be a big factor after he's dead in Darlene's life. That maybe she can find love on the beach again. Or even she can, by helping her Haitian brethren, she can find that kind of love there, like love for her Haitian brethren. I mean, not in a romantic sense, but by supporting the Haitians who seek a better life in America, she can find that love, and that can help her heal, and that can probably help Paris heal. So that's what I noticed, and I think that really helps knock this story out of the park. And it makes it sad, but like there's that hope, there's that vibe that like that this isn't a complete soul-sucking sadness, I think is what I'm getting at. Anyway, so those are my thoughts on the Without Inspection, the short story by Edwidge Danticat. A wonderful, absolutely amazing short story. Definitely in the top contenders for one of the best that I've read on Short Story Tuesdays thus far since I started in May. I really enjoyed like the how she brought like the stories of Haitians to life through her writing, and it was a really compelling read. And like there are multiple other short stories in this collection that are worth reading, and I absolutely recommend that you pick this up if you can find it. It was written in 2019, so fairly new, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough. And I'm definitely going to seek out more of Edwidge's work, because like if this is good, like imagine what our other stuff must be like. So yeah, definitely thrilled to discover more about her. If you read this short story in the past, or you have something to comment about, what I said about Haitian immigrants or something like that, if I might have said something wrong, feel free to comment below. I would always love to learn more, and I'd love to have a conversation with you, because that is always a fun time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that other people may find out about a quality short story like this and many others on Short Story Tuesday. Until then, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and construction site-y travels. Farewell.